Hello and welcome to this special show on the Office of Neighborhood Revitalization. I'm your host, Tony DellaFlora. Albuquerque has been in the news a lot lately for issues regarding the homeless. It seems a new tent city crops up every week. But there are others on the edge of homelessness trying to survive too. And with me today are a couple of people whose mission is to kind of stop homelessness before it starts. Marie Chavez, manager of the city's Office of Neighborhood Revitalization, and John Ames, let me get this right, Director of Community Housing for the Supportive Housing Coalition of New Mexico. I want to welcome you guys here today. Before we get into our discussion about this issue, we'd like to show the viewers a little piece we did, a video about one of the families that your office helped, assisted them in getting their home rehabilitated. So let's take a look.
Scott and Michelle Borg and their children Alan and Shelby live near the University of New Mexico football stadium. Scott and Michelle moved into their modest 3-bedroom home in 1998. Like many families in the Albuquerque area, the Borg family has lived in substandard housing. Although both Scott and Michelle work, and Michelle collects Social Security disability to help pay the mortgage, they were unable to keep up with needed repairs and upgrades. In fact, their home deteriorated to the point where relatives feared it might be shut down for safety reasons, and the family potentially split up. Scott's sister, Kathy, went to the city's Office of Neighborhood Revitalization to see if the family would qualify for a home rehabilitation loan.
Well, my motivation for going to the home rehabilitation program was my concern for the family, because I'm afraid that with the condition the house is in, that they would be evicted at some point because the house would be condemned. I was really afraid that it had gotten to such a point that it was maybe dangerous for the family, especially the children living in the house, and I really worried that social services would come in at some point and say that this is a hazard and that the family would not be able to stay together. Now at this point, I don't think we'd be doing the children any favors by separating them from their family.
The family did qualify, and manager Marie Chavez and her staff took over from there. Program Inspector Larry Moya determined what repairs needed to be made, and in collaboration with Chavez and the local contractor, Facility Build, came up with a plan of action. The office allotted $65,000 in federal funds for the home improvement. The loans are no interest and, in some cases, forgivable for families that qualify under the income guidelines. Larry Ford managed the project for Facility Build.
I think one of the biggest issues that we have to deal with usually is the electrical systems, because especially like in a house like this, the electrical system is so outdated and it has wiring from the 1950s that's, it doesn't have grounding plugs, it doesn't have anything. So we have to basically come in, remove all the old wiring and everything, and try to rewire everything in a way that is updated and up to code. Then we have already started with the ductwork in the furnace. That's going on, that's completed already right now, the rough-in is. The windows will all be replaced. They will be replaced as we're putting high energy efficient windows in here, double hung windows throughout. They'll, double pane all the way through. So everything will, once we're done, combined with our EFIS system that we have on the outside, our EFIS stucco system and the windows and everything, this will be a very efficient house when it comes to cooling and heating. And then when we demoed the kitchen, we found that all the pipes, everything was not put in the walls. The plumbing, as you can see, was out, just sitting in the middle of the floor. They was actually built, what they did is they ran the plumbing and stuff, and then they built the cabinets and everything around the plumbing. So we're gonna relocate all the plumbing into the walls, the gas line into the wall and everything, so we can redo that. And we'll do that when we have to pull all that flooring and everything in there and expose it all the way to the floor joists.
The family moved into an apartment in October while the renovation got underway. Workers began repairs inside and out, working through the holidays. To prepare the family for its new home, Marie Chavez engaged the Independent Living Resource Center to help provide needed support services. The community agency encourages and empowers individuals with disabilities to participate fully in family, community, and work life.
That'd be a goal.
This ensures the best chance for a good outcome for the family. Although some might question the cost of the project, those involved believe the benefits far outweigh the alternative, both financially and emotionally.
The greatest goals of any sort of community service social agency is to keep a family together and cohesive and supported. I think is the highest good that any sort of social agency can do. The alternatives are pretty grim. Having pride in your home and your life situation is one of the fundamental things that makes this country a decent place to live. The whole American dream is to have this, to have a house you're proud of and to have a family and to take care of them the best you can. All the studies I've read are like, it's cheaper. It's so much cheaper to just give people places to live, and then you can build up all the services around that house.
Putting money into housing still has its controversies, and we know today that working with families to house them first is much more cost effective than trying to steer them towards different services in the community in hopes that one day they will graduate, as it were, to housing. In 2012, the city, UNM, and the city of Albuquerque did a study on the Heading Home Initiative, an initiative designed to quickly house homeless people, and the cost savings were astronomical.
Families do fall through the cracks. It's not whether they will, it's a when they will. And then cleaning it all up and firefighting is much harder.
Well, I think it is easy for a family today to slip through the cracks from being what we call precariously housed to homeless. It's really about living from paycheck to paycheck, and finally, ends just don't meet up, and they're evicted usually if they're renters. If they're homeowners, then like the family we're working with, they just can't make it work, and so the house could be red tagged, and they'd have to move. So it is rather easy in our economy for a family to go from a tenuous situation to homelessness. Well, I think the main benefit of keeping a family together is, again, stability. And housing, I think, plays a critical role. A clean, safe, affordable house that then again, they just know where they're going to be on a daily basis. It reduces stress, and then they can focus, the entire family can focus on the needs before them.
3 months after the renovations began, the family returned to its home.
What I want to do is give you guys your keys.
Oh, good. Oh, thank you.
Come on in, open your door, come on into your new house, guys.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Shelby? Michelle?
They just put shelves. Oh, cool. This would be the best house ever. Best house ever. Oh my God. Yep.
You'll be all happy about it?
Yeah.
Oh, into the
I don't know how they got in there.
Yeah, this is for your door.
I don't know, it wasn't.
I think that is a...
And then the windows closed.
Oh, cool. And all the windows.
This is great. As Shelby said, the best house in America.
I think that's the best part of it, is to be able to see, when they first got here, to see the kids just excited and wanting to come in and everything. That was the best part of it, From the first time we came in and they were just sitting around here, you could tell that there's a difference in their attitude and their happiness and everything. So I think once they get it all set up and you've seen them when they were outside, they were excited to be. They came in, they wanted to see their rooms, they wanted to see everything. So it's really satisfying.
It looks amazing. So it looks like a brand new house, and the kids are so excited. It just warms my heart to see how happy they are.
Oh, it's wonderful. It makes our job worthwhile. We love what we do, and this is why. It is a long process for both the families for our program, for everybody involved, but it definitely is worth it.
And this is a like brand new beginning for us.
Well, John Marie, thanks for being part of that video. It was, and I want to thank the Borg family for letting us into their lives. It's a kind of an intimate experience showing people your house off, and they were gracious enough to let us come in and do that. And I got to say, it was quite an eye-opening experience in many ways, but especially learning about the program and everything. And before I get to that, though, I want to talk to John a little bit. John, let's define this problem. In the video, you had used the term precariously housed, which I thought was interesting. And expand on that a little bit. And how many people might be in this situation, do you think?
Sure. Well, precariously housed is different than being homeless. It is that group of individuals that we would say are on the verge of being homeless. We often use the language of couch surfing. People that are really bouncing around from a family member to a family member or to a friend, and they very much fall through the cracks. There are no federal or city funds that really help those individuals because they're not homeless. New Mexico, as we know, is a very poor state. About 20% of New Mexicans live under the poverty rate. And in Albuquerque, believe it or not, 53% of the households in Albuquerque actually fall in the lower economic income categories, making like $50,000 or less for a family of 4. So we all know how much it costs to live. So although I don't have numbers for the exact number of people that are precariously housed, we know that there's a lot. That it's sort of an invisible population. With the tent city and other publicity that we've given to homeless people, we have a handle on who those individuals are. But these individuals that are bouncing around, that are living in substandard housing, that are really challenged with the cost of owning or even renting housing, and with the number of children we know that are living in poverty, that are in the Title I program, at APS, we can imagine that the numbers are in the thousands.
Wow, that's something. Well, Marie, your office deals with sort of a subset of this population, actual homeowners living in usually substandard housing, I guess is why they're in your program. But I'm curious, how many requests a year does your office get for these loans that you give out for the program, and any idea how many people might be living in substandard housing around here?
Well, we get about 200 to 300 inquiries a year, but our inquiries also come from agencies like John's or agencies, American Red Cross, different agencies throughout the city make referrals to us. So as a matter of fact, we even get a lot of calls from UNM, case managers, because their patients, they're having issues with their homes, so they're looking for resources. So we get a lot of inquiries. As far as, the percentage of people, I'd say that when we go in, that their house is in such a condition that we're afraid it would be condemned, it's not that great. Most of the people, I wish that more people would call us before their house is falling down on top of them.
Right.
Usually, I'm not sure if it's their culture, I'm not sure what it is, that people are more hesitant to ask for help, especially from the government, to ask for help until they're desperate.
Yeah.
So when we go in, but I'm going to say maybe 30%, 20%, where we're afraid if we don't do something quickly, this house could be condemned.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting in the course of doing this piece that we just showed you that that we have a situation here where we have both parents working. The wife collects some Social Security disability, and yet they're still having trouble making ends meet. And it seems like this is an issue, sort of as you outlined before. It's basically working poor or working middle class and having a hard time making it meet. Are they fairly typical of a lot of families around here?
Very much so. The numbers of people on disability income, either Social Security disability or supplemental security income is really high in Albuquerque. SSI, I think, is approaching $800 a month. That's it. SSDI could be a little more than that, depending upon how many quarters you've worked. So I can imagine that this family has a very small amount of money, even though they have several sources of income to raise a family of 4. And a home is expensive. Property taxes go up 3% every year, as well as, of course, just the cost of living, clothing, and everything for the. So it is very typical, I think, and more so if you drive around town, to see that homes are, the people are just barely hanging on. The cost of water prevents people from keeping up with their landscaping, painting, and one thing adds up. It just begins to add up. And so we, like Marie said, I think the case of this family and their home may be extraordinary, but you can see in any neighborhood homes that need some revitalization to one degree or another.
Okay. Well, Marie, let's talk, we're assuming people watching this don't know much about your program. Let's talk about how the home rehabilitation program works and how it's funded. So let's start with that, about the funding for it.
Okay, well, we get our, excuse me, we get our funding from the U.S. Housing and Urban Development. And right now we're using community development block grant funds. Now that's not always the case, the type of funds that we use, but at this point, this year, this is what we're using. And our program is designed to assist homeowners in making repairs in their homes, keeping them, bringing them up to code. Now we used to say low-income homeowners, but people don't realize, like John said earlier, New Mexico is a poor state. So a lot of people don't identify themselves as being low income because they don't realize
it's the way it's always been.
Exactly. You think, well, if I make $25,000 a year, I'm doing really good. Well, I'm sorry, but you're living in poverty is what you're doing. You don't realize that. So we try to, tell people, they don't realize what low income means in the state of New Mexico. I think we've lived in the state for so long, we don't know what it means. But we're here to provide 0% interest loans to homeowners to assist them in bringing their houses up to code. We have 3 loan products, and depending on where you fall in that spectrum, according to HUD, U.S. Housing and Urban Development, they put out income guidelines every year, and depending on where you fall in that range, you could qualify for a forgivable loan, which means you wouldn't have to pay it back. Or you may have to pay all of it back, but it's at 0% interest. So I don't think you can go anywhere and get a 0% interest loan. And we work with, each homeowner is so unique, each household is so unique.
Right.
So we work out whether it's the payments, how long this lien is gonna stay on the home. We work out, like I say, every family is unique, and depending on what their needs are, that's what we address.
How do you go through these 200 or 300 applications and pick out the ones that are going to qualify? Is there a certain criteria you're looking at?
There is. We look at their debt to income ratios. We look at everything. HUD gives us guidelines, so we need to make sure that these homeowners meet these guidelines. So we're looking at their taxes. If we're looking at the number in the family. We're looking at how much debt they have. We're looking at their first mortgage. Is their first mortgage, is it so? Because we use their equity to secure our loan. So depending on how much equity they have, it may determine how much we can spend on a house. We have a cap of $65,000 that we can spend on each house. But it just depends, because sometimes we have to go in and we have to put in a special request to spend a little more. Sometimes we have to pull in other agencies to help us. Maybe we can get another agency to do the windows and another agency to do the roof. So between all 3 of us, all these agencies, we sit down and we come out with a plan. We come up with a plan of action and determine who's going to pay for what and how we're going to get this paid for, or if the homeowner can afford to pay part of it. So it really does. It's a big process. It's a huge process undertaking for our staff, because each one, our staff, they've got to look at all the resources that are available to us. I mean, we've had to go to P&M and ask for refrigerators and to help pay for utilities. It just depends.
Yeah, as you said, every household needs a little something different. Well, I wanted to get to one of the points that we brought up in the video. You were mentioning services and their financial services and that things, but as we saw in the video, there was also additional services provided for this family from Independent Living Resource Center because of disabilities involved in that family. But one of the points that Kate made and John followed up on was that in terms of preventing the homeless population from getting bigger with a family like this, that it's easier, it's more cost effective and usually a better result to get a family housed first and then provide them with support services as opposed to bringing all the support services together and, as you said, hope that they get lucky and get into a house. Could you go into a little bit more about what you deal with in terms of this population?
Sure, and I think the exciting thing is that the work I do and the work Marie is doing really has this common denominator about trying to help families first, and that there really is a cost savings when we do this. The study that was mentioned in the video that UNM did a few years ago shows that the cost to our community, to Albuquerque, was reduced by about 31% per household, or per individual in that case, when you add up the costs of emergency services, hospitalizations, incarceration. I'm sure there are many other costs, like even just with the cost of providing an education for kids. It would be more difficult if the family and our children are homeless. So it's a national model now recognized throughout the country, and especially by HUD, that we work to house people first, we say. That we identify their need for housing, and then once they're in housing, we work to help them secure services that can really then address all of their needs as a family or as an individual.
Right.
And that is precisely what we're doing with, I think, neighborhood revitalization. It is costly to revitalize a home, but just think of the impact on a neighborhood. I can't say enough about that. If it were happening in my neighborhood, I'd be delighted to see that home brought up to snuff and look as good as it does today.
Yeah, Marie, talk about that. You had mentioned that to me before, that this program is not just for that individual family.
Well, people don't realize, because I've had people, actually neighbors, and not for this particular family, we'll say, but as we, throughout our the houses that we've rehabbed, I've actually had neighbors stop me in the street and say, "Why are you working on this house when," we'll just say, "this person doesn't even work"? Well, they don't know what this person's situation is.
Right.
It may be that, yes, you know what, they worked most of their life, now they can't work. But when we rehab a home, the entire neighborhood, the value of their homes goes up. Because you don't realize, if you're selling your home and you drive into that neighborhood and there's a house that's falling apart, it affects the value of your home.
Right.
And it's also, if there's children in the home, like in this case, if those children can be raised in a home that is safe and secure, studies show that they take that with them. They take that into their adulthood, they take that into their school, as to their buy-in. How much do they buy into their community? How much do they buy into their school? Whereas if they're not taught that at an early age, if they don't, a lot of times if you don't show somebody that, somebody cares, they go out with an attitude that why should they care? But studies show that if you can teach that at an early age, they take that with them. And it really does. It affects the entire neighborhood. If this house is falling apart, and if you think it's bad on the outside, you have no idea what's going on the inside, because most people are going to take care of what's going on the inside before they take care of what's going on the outside. So I know, just driving down a neighborhood, if I see a house from the outside that's looking pretty bad, it needs a new roof, you can see that you've got broken windows, safety hazards, the inside is going to be worse. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure people are curious too. You don't just go fix their house up and leave. What's the follow-up plan after this the rehab's taken?
For our program, we stay with our homeowners for a year. So, because we have a 1-year warranty from our contractors.
Okay.
So, but during that 1 year, the homeowners know you can contact us.
Yeah.
Anything goes wrong with this house, you get a leak. As a matter of fact, we tell them, please call us. Do not attempt to fix anything yourself because we have a warranty. But we also
Right.
want to be able to teach the homeowners how to maintain the home themselves. You know, when time comes for you to turn on your air conditioner, call us. We have somebody go up there, and now we're going to show this homeowner how to take care of issues themselves. They get a closeout package, and we tell them, you know, refer to your closeout package. Before you call a repairman, refer to your closeout package, because it may answer your questions. You may not need to call a repairman. You may be able to do it yourself.
Okay. How important, your program is not mandated to supply support services outside of the actual repair, but you obviously go to great lengths to bring people like John in. How important have you found these support services, in whatever area they are, to the success of your program?
To be honest with you, I don't think it could be a success without them, because I've worked with Family Community Services for over 20 years, and most of the people that work in this program also, they've been working for Family Community Services. So that's how I met John. Is I've worked, you know, with Supportive Housing Coalition and many other agencies. So we have resources, but we also know, like I said, each family is so unique and they need different services. As we meet the families, we find out even if we fix their house, they can't afford to pay for the gas bill throughout the entire month because their income is so limited. They need to go on a pay plan. They do not have, their income doesn't allow them to bring in the groceries that they need for the entire month. Well, we know where we can tap into these resources for them, and that's what we do. As we learn and we get to know these families, we need to make those connections. And sometimes they say, I've called 10 times and I've never gotten a call back. Well, guess what? It's our department that provides the funding or some of the funding for those agencies. So we kind of like, I can call John instead of, you know, somebody who works out on the line, out in the field. I can call the director. And so it's really interesting. So we just kind of have resources that we can tap into, but we're always trying to make those partnerships. I'm always trying to meet with anybody out there who can assist us, and we can do the same. We're a resource for them. They can be a resource for us.
Great. Well, we just have a couple minutes left, but I wanted to ask you, John, as you noted in the video, there's still some resistance to funding programs like this, even though study after study shows it makes monetary sense, fiscal sense for you to do this. What do you think is the biggest impediment to getting that funding flowing more?
Well, I think that it's we're working on that in this city, and I'm very happy that we are. But I think there's always been sort of this pull yourself up by the bootstrap mentality, and so a government handout, as it were, is frowned upon. That's one barrier. We still have an attitude like that. Although once you get to meet the individuals, you know, that goes away rather quickly. I think there's also a need to sort of connect the dots of the savings that we have in the community, so you know, we know that if we can house individuals like this safely and affordably, that they're spending less time in the emergency room, for instance, at UNM Hospital. So what's the cost savings there, and how can that be translated into programs so that the money saved here can actually help support the program over there? Connecting some of the dollar signs and the dots, I think, it needs to be improved, and I think that then would help to reduce a barrier in providing more funding for these sorts of programs.
Okay. Well, Marie, I know you're always out stumping to keep your program funded and keep everything going. What do you tell legislators or whoever, you know, people that are suspicious of this program? What's your pitch to them?
Well, you know, when we first were designing the program, because we just opened our doors for business in June of 2011, well, we did a study, and we talked to the state of New Mexico, and we talked to everybody. And what we found was that it cost the state approximately $88,000 to house one person in assisted living. And that's not just the housing portion of it, that's everything that's included. So if you look at what we're investing, so how long does it take for us to break even? The truth is, it's a cost savings, but it's not just that. It's also keeping these families together and keeping them safe and their quality of life. They, you know, studies show they live longer. they need less services if we can go in and make their house ADA accessible and provide them with the services that they need. Ultimately, I promise you, ultimately everybody is going to benefit from keeping this family in their home and keeping them safe.
Great. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. I'd love to come back in 6 months and see where the family is and talk some more about the program. But I want to thank Marie Chavez of the Office of Neighborhood Revitalization for being here, and of course, John Ames with Supportive Housing Coalition. I think this is important stuff, so thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us on this special show, and we'll see you next time.